Hello readers and welcome back to Lit for Queers. Welcome back to my corner of the internet where I recommend you guys everything queer. And today I only have one recommendation for you, but it's a recommendation that I hope you will enjoy as much as I enjoyed and one that I'm very excited about. So let's get into that. The book I want to recommend to you today is an advanced reader copy of a book that just came out a few days ago. It's called The Crack at the Heart of Everything by Fiona Fenn. And as a person who doesn't really read fantasy that much anymore, I really, really enjoyed it. So even if you're not super into fantasy usually, this is first a standalone, second, it's really good. And it's really queer. And I feel like it doesn't happen that often that a lot of queer books are also fantasy or vice versa. So what does this talk about? What is The Crack of Everything about? Well, let me explain it to you and hopefully you will sign up to get this book as soon as I finish talking. The story focuses on Orpheus, who is a dark mage, and he has only known the four walls of the Gilded Palace for his entire life. He's been locked up in there with Lore, his best friend, for his entire life, as long as he can remember. And while he's turned out to have powers, we find out how and why throughout the book, she has turned out to be a conqueror. And enlisting his help and his magic, she has managed to conquer all the lands that were nearby and far away. And Orpheus didn't really realize the extent or the magnitude of what his friend Lore wanted to do. And when he casts a really, really powerful spell that literally breaks the earth in pieces and summons sort of warriors from hell, he also starts being haunted by these hell creatures. And so his friend Lore decides that he's too much of liability to have around because it seems like he has a death curse on him, and so she banishes him from the palace. And so we follow Orpheus, who is very devastated at this point, and as I said, he hasn't known anything else besides the walls of the palace and besides Lore's friendship. So he finds himself cast out into the big bad world, and he's actually seeing for the first time the effects of his magic on the world around him. And he's not alone in being banished. He's accompanied by what he considers his biggest rival, the head of the human army of his friend Lore. And there's always been a bit of banter between the two, but there's things that are being acknowledged a little more now in this trip out to the world. And so what happens in the story, without making too many spoilers and without giving too much away, is that Orpheus, despite considering himself a sort of anti-hero, a sort of on the side of the conqueror, of somebody who's not all good, because he's realized that Lore is not all good, he finds this calling for heroism. Basically, he realizes that there's a lot that he can fix with his magic, and there's some things that he needs to think about his powers and how he came to have these powers. And so this book, obviously, it's about magic. It's in a fantasy world, but we have such a good protagonist in terms of vulnerability, in terms of having him deal with really human and realistic issues and struggles. We're not just talking about characters that have far-fetched issues of the future and that only happens in fantasy worlds. We see, for example, that Orpheus has never known any other friend than Lore, but their relationship is not necessarily the healthiest. And this is something that can happen a lot in our human world, right? Just stumbling into a relationship and finding later that you kind of trauma bonded instead of being an actual healthy friendship. But he's also realizing that he's not as unlovable as he thought he was, and that he's not a burden, and all of these nice little nuggets of character development we have in this book. Not to mention that it's incredibly witty. It's not steamy, so that's not something that you should go into it hoping for. But we have a really nice slow burn of romance here, and I really, really like that. And so yeah, this is the crack at the heart of everything. I just love that at the back it says he accidentally cursed himself, because I think this sets the tone a little of how humorous this is going to be, despite having a lot of deeper and more thoughtful comments on the world. And so yeah, I really enjoyed this, and so I want to recommend this to you. And I thank the Colored Pages book tour again for this lovely advanced reader's copy. It's really good, and I can't wait to put it in my library. And so until next time, my fellow readers, and I hope you've enjoyed this little video, and I hope you want to pick up this lovely fantasy book now. Bye!